What is your response?" Prince Yun's gaze shifted to Shola as he studied her briefly. Finally, he turned back to the emperor. "I suppose I do need a wife." Shola loved her job. Working as a translator for a publishing company in Shanghai gave her access to countless amazing books, many of which hadn't been released yet. Today, she was handed a new manuscript to translate into English. The story was set in a fictional Chinese empire that aspired to become a global trade hub, forging connections with kingdoms from every continent, thereby increasing its wealth and influence. The emperor, after considerable effort, had successfully reached an agreement with an African kingdom, Kandari, which was abundant in resources. To solidify the treaty, the Kandari king sent the youngest of his 10 daughters, Princess Shola, to become a concubine of the crown prince, Long Chen. After marrying the crown prince, she was treated with disdain. Despite the cruelty, she fell in love with him and ultimately gave her life to save him from an assassination attempt. Only after her death did the crown prince realize the depth of his mistake and regret how he had treated her. But by then, it was too late. Shola hurled the book across the room of her home office. "What sort of ridiculous story is this?" she muttered. "The author must be nuts." What made it worse was that the female protagonist shared her name. She couldn't imagine translating such drivel. Having her name associated with this nonsense would ruin her reputation. Frustrated, she called her agent to request that the contract for the book be canceled. To her surprise, the agent told her that work on the book would be paused anyway. The author had been in a car accident the day before, and he was now in a coma. Shola's anger softened. She couldn't help but feel sorry for him and silently wished him a full recovery. Hanging up the phone, Shola glanced at the clock. Evening had crept up on her, and she realized she hadn't eaten much all day. Exhausted, she decided to grab a quick snack from the neighborhood grocery store. Still groggy and distracted, she stepped into the road without checking if the pedestrian light was green. A blaring honk jolted her senses, and she turned to see a truck barreling toward her at full speed. There was no time to react. The impact was swift, and everything went black. Shola opened her eyes slowly, bracing herself for what she expected to be unbearable pain. But she felt nothing. Confused, she concluded she must already be dead. Was this heaven? She sat up, taking in her unfamiliar surroundings. Her heart pounded as her gaze darted around the ornate walls. Where was she? A young woman dressed as a palace servant approached her bedside, her face lighting up with relief. "Princess Shola, you're awake!" she exclaimed. "You've had a fever for 3 days. The doctor said it was caused by homesickness." I was so worried Shola stared at the woman, her shock rendering her momentarily speechless. "Princess Shola? That couldn't be right. Who are you? Where am I?" she managed to ask. The servant's smile faltered. "Oh no, princess. Let me fetch the imperial doctor." Shola quickly stopped her. "Wait, is your name Lin?" The woman's eyes widened. "Yes, princess. You're starting to remember." Shola's heart sank. Lin was the name of the loyal maid assigned by the palace to the protagonist in the book, the one who stayed by her side until the bitter end. This couldn't be real. Steeling herself, she asked the question she dreaded. "Then I am Princess Shola of Kandari?" "Yes! Yes, you are!" Lin clapped her hands and bounced with childlike glee. But Shola didn't share her enthusiasm. If this was real, and she had somehow been transported into the book she was reading, then what awaited her was not heaven. It was a nightmare. Later, after speaking further with Lin, Shola learned that today was the day she was to be betrothed to the crown prince. Panic crept in. She knew she couldn't marry him, but she had no idea how to escape this world and return to her own. Ending her life wasn't an option. It was too drastic, too painful, and there was no guarantee it would work. For now, her best chance was to survive and play along. After much deliberation, Shola decided to take a risk. She wrote a letter and entrusted Lin to deliver it in secret. Though terrified when she saw the name on the letter, Lin agreed to carry out the task. Later that day, Shola was summoned to the imperial study. The emperor sat behind a grand desk, his presence commanding. Nearby, the crown prince stood with a reserved, detached expression. "Princess Shola," the emperor began, "I trust you have enjoyed your stay with us these past few months. I see you are adapting well to our customs." "Yes, Your Majesty," Shola replied. "Thank you for your hospitality." Hospitality, indeed. Since her arrival, she had endured harsh daily lessons designed to prepare her for marriage into the royal family. Her Kandari clothing and jewelry had been confiscated without her consent. Although Shola felt little personal attachment to those items, she couldn't help but feel sympathy for the original protagonist. The conversation continued with polite formalities, the emperor detailing the terms of the trade agreement that would unite their kingdoms. Then, just as he was about to announce her betrothal to the crown prince, Shola spoke up. "Your Majesty, if I may," she interjected, "I believe it is necessary to add one clause to the agreement." The emperor raised an eyebrow. "And what might that be?" "I would like to be granted the freedom to choose my own husband." The emperor nodded, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips. He was certain she would choose the crown prince. What he didn't know was that Shola had no intention of following the path laid out for her in the book. She remembered all too well how the original princess had willingly accepted her fate, even agreeing to become the prince's concubine, since foreign women were forbidden from becoming empress. That decision had allowed the crown prince to manipulate the trade agreement entirely in his favor, leaving her kingdom with nothing. Shola wasn't about to let history or fiction repeat itself. Princess Shola and the emperor both sealed the agreement with their respective seals. The emperor then asked, "Have you considered who you would like to be betrothed to?" Shola nodded firmly. "Prince Yun," she replied. The emperor and the crown prince froze, visibly shocked. Prince Yun was an enigma within the royal family. His mother, a low-ranking concubine, had passed away shortly after his birth, leaving him to navigate the brutal reality of palace life on his own. Hardened by these experiences, Prince Yun had become a man of few words. Known for his cold demeanor and ruthless military discipline, his distance from court politics, coupled with the immense military power he wielded, made both the emperor and the crown prince wary of him. The crown prince was the first to speak, his voice laced with disbelief. "Prince Yun? Long Yun? Surely you must be mistaken. That brother of mine spends more time on the battlefield than in the capital. He has nothing to offer you. I thought you—" Shola interrupted before he could finish. "Respectfully, Your Highness, he is the husband I have chosen." The emperor, attempting to regain control of the situation, said cautiously, "Prince Yun is a man who has always valued his freedom. It's unlikely he would agree to this marriage." Shola met his gaze steadily. "Then let us summon him and ask his opinion." Prince Yun was summoned without delay. His cold, calculating eyes swept over the room as he entered. "You sent for me, father?" he asked, his tone icy. "Yes," the emperor replied. "You are, of course, aware of Princess Shola. She has expressed a wish to be betrothed to you. What is your response?" Prince Yun's gaze shifted to Shola as he studied her briefly. Finally, he turned back to the emperor. "I suppose I do need a wife." I accept. The disbelief on the faces of the emperor and crown prince was almost comical, and it took all of Shola's willpower to suppress her laughter. Left with no other choice, the emperor issued a decree for their wedding to take place the following month. As they exited the imperial study, Prince Yun walked beside Shola, his expression unreadable. "Princess," he began, his tone sharp, "rumor has it that you're in love with the crown prince. So you can imagine my surprise when I received your letter. Why the sudden change of heart?" Shola met his gaze, her voice calm. "I simply thought things through. Rather than fighting an entire harem of women for the attention of a man who doesn't care about me, why not choose a quiet and free life?" For the first time, Prince Yun smiled, a small, amused smile that softened his cold exterior. Shola continued, her tone serious. "As I mentioned in my letter, let me remind you, This is a strategic alliance. We won't be romantically involved. Once the trade stabilizes in a few years and relations between our kingdoms are secure, we can part ways amicably." Prince Yun's smile widened into a sly grin. "Relax, princess. We'll be fine as long as you don't fall in love with me." "I won't," she said emphatically, clenching her fists to resist the temptation to punch him. They reached an agreement, a marriage that would grant Shola authority over inter-kingdom trade while shielding Yun from the emperor and Crown Prince's attempts to force him into a politically advantageous union. After Prince Yun left, Lin approached Shola, her voice trembling with concern. "Oh, princess! Of all people, why would you choose Prince Yun?" Shola simply smiled to herself, offering no answer. She had chosen him not just because he was a decent man, but because she knew what fate awaited him. According to the book, Prince Yun's life would soon end in tragedy. In the next war, the Crown Prince would orchestrate a delay in military provisions, causing Yun and his men to starve and be annihilated by the enemy. He would then send reinforcements, feign grief for the loss of his brother, and honor Prince Yun as a hero who sacrificed himself for the nation. As the widow of a hero, Shola would gain her freedom, along with wealth and status, until she could find a way back to her own world. Yet, as she replayed Yun's faint smile in her mind, a pang of guilt stirred in her heart. She quickly dismissed it. None of this was real. These were just characters in a story. Her survival was all that mattered,